afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club, also known as the CMC. So glad that you're here. My name is Tony Bell. I am the CEO and Chief Learning Officer for Phoenix Consulting Company, and I'm also a proud member of the CMC's Board of Trustees. We are so grateful and appreciative to today's sponsors, Columbus State Community College, where I'm a proud graduate of, Grange Insurance, The Ohio State University, and Otterbein University. Give them a big round of applause. Thank you so much for being sponsors, and thank you to the presenting sponsor of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, and our live stream promotional partner, the Columbus Dispatch. So I'd like to welcome each of you, and remember that today and every day, the CMC Forum takes a village. It takes a village to raise a child. It takes a village to support the villagers. So you're all villagers, and I want to thank you for being here as part of today's program. So Ohio's system of higher education is reinventing itself for a new era in the state's history. Will schools be ready? Dun, 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 dun. And I know they're saying yes. So with today's panelists, we'll explore how Central Ohio's colleges and universities are preparing for a climate where every dollar counts, where potential students are scarcer than a generation ago, and where partnerships and innovations are the keys to help Ohio's institutions of higher education build tomorrow's workforce, and in some ways even today's. So now it is my great honor to welcome our distinguished panelists. Are you ready? It's going to be amazing. Please welcome first Dr. Morakinyo Kuti, Dr. Kuti, President of Central State University, Dr. John Comerford, President of Otterbein University, Dr. David Harrison, President of Columbus State, Dr. James Orr, Vice Provost for Strategic Enrollment Management at The Ohio State University, and our host, Sheridan Hendricks, Higher Education Reporter for Columbus Dispatch. And I want you to give them all a round of applause. Because we can bring the joy, we can bring the noise, and we can certainly have this conversation. So Sheridan, come on up. Thank you, guys.
All right, everyone. I'm excited because we get to talk about my favorite topic, higher education. I have an audience that's just waiting to hear from these guys all about this. So let's dive right in. Like Tony was saying, there are a lot of issues facing higher education. There's a lot of great innovation taking place here in our state as well. But my two favorite words are historical context. So I think it's helpful to level set a little bit and get an idea of where we are at in higher education right now. I already told James that I'm going to pick on him first as our resident here. You guys can hear me? All right. As our resident enrollment specialist here, so James, can you tell us a little bit about this scary, looming word, the demographic cliff? What does this mean for higher education?
Absolutely, and so good to see everybody here. So in 2008, a researcher and economist by the name of Nathan McGraw, he studied birth rates and a decline in birth rates. And because of those declines in birth rates, what he projected is that starting in 2025, this fall, that there would be a decline in the number of high school graduates across the country. We've already seen that decline in many places, but another thing that is probably a little bit more concerning is college going rates. 2 years ago, 8.3 million students and families applied to college, they were accepted to college, and they chose not to go anywhere. In the state of Ohio, we went from 2010 to 2023, we were at 72% of our students, high school graduates, going to college from the state of Ohio in 2010 to 66% a year ago going to college. So if you think about that, not only do we have a decline in birth rates, which means a decline in college graduates, we have more and more students who are choosing not to go to college and not to go to college anywhere.
So with that in mind, for anyone who wants to start us off, how have your institutions been seeing this changing demographic cliff, but then also bracing for it?
I'll jump. I want to start by thanking Tony for singing Columbus State. I love that. We are, the data that James cited are national data. We're a local institution. And I think that those demographics play out differently community by community. And we're blessed in Central Ohio that we are still seeing a lot of growth. We've got a lot of school districts that are building elementary schools, middle schools, high schools. That's something that really does matter. Specifically, we are have had a real focus on adult learners. Many of our students are adults anyway, and we're seeing a real growth in that regard. And with our partnerships with employers and other things that are happening in the region that I think we'll be able to touch on here shortly, I'm really optimistic in terms of increasing the college going rate. And I think James's point is really spot on. It's less about the demographics and it's more about helping students and families understand the possibilities through higher ed.
Well, as the president said, it depends on who your target enrollment is. As an historically Black university, our enrollment has stayed steady even after the pandemic. And for cultural reasons, a lot more students are interested in HBCUs. So we saw a slight increase in our traditional student enrollment last fall. And based on our numbers so far, our enrollment for the fall of 25 looks to be significantly stronger because not only are we focusing on getting more students, but we're actually focusing on Ohio students. So we've added resources on our campus. We increased our enrollment staff by, we had 4, had 2. So about 30% to recruit or to focus strictly on recruiting Ohio college students. So it depends on who you're targeting to how it will affect you.
Well, we've discussed at Otterbein, if there aren't enough 18-year-olds to go around, one way to solve that is opening the door of access to higher education wider. There's a bunch of students that should go to college that don't consider it for financial or other reasons. And so we decided a few years ago to, if a student is Pell Grant eligible, so they do the FAFSA and they're low to moderate income, then we meet their full need for tuition with no loans. And we're the only school in the state to do it. And that means we're now 40% Pell eligible on campus. We're 30% students of color. We're serving students that wouldn't otherwise be served in our system often. The other thing we've done, and Dave is exactly right, the growth is in adult learning. And let's be real, a school like Otterbein, if you know Otterbein, we're set up for the 18 to 22-year-olds. You know, we got fraternities and sororities and Division III athletics, and you're gonna have a class at 9, 11, and 3, and there's just no way it's set up well for adults. And so how do we do that without giving up what makes us so special? And so through a company that we founded called the Coalition for the Common Good, we work with Antioch University, not Antioch College, Antioch University, which is entirely an adult learning organization in Seattle, LA, Santa Barbara, New England. And we are taking our graduate programs to all of those campuses and bringing all those Antioch programs to Central Ohio. And we've already seen 10% growth in Antioch enrollment in that adult market. So it's a way to have our cake and eat it too. We can keep the traditional campus with the 18-year-olds, but also be in the adult market in a significant way through our friends at Antioch.
Well, since we're, James, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, one of the things that we've done at Ohio State is really double down on our efforts in focusing on rural communities in the Appalachian areas of Ohio. I've been really pleased with the enrollment of our regional campuses. In fact, over the last 2 years, we've seen a nearly 20% increase in first-year enrollment on our regional campuses. And this past year on the Columbus campus, we enrolled the largest first-year class in the history of the institution. And it really goes back to this idea of how do we provide access and opportunity, particularly for Ohio residents.
So we've talked a little bit about adult learners, talking about some of these other demographic groups. You know, if you are a 17-year-old high school junior, most of the time you're going to start going to a college counselor, talking to other, your peers, some of your teachers saying, college, what are you thinking? What are we doing? For some of these other demographic groups that maybe aren't in a high school, and as fewer and fewer high school students are going to be having that conversation with their teachers and with their peers, how do you actually go about reaching some of these demographic groups, like adult learners? John, if you want to start us there.
Sure. And so again, through our work with Antioch, one way we've discovered that we think is untapped is through employers. Everyone with a low unemployment environment, if you're an employer, you're hungry for talent. You want to attract and retain talent, and employers are willing to put skin in the game right now to make that happen. And so in the last 6 months, we've signed 6 deals with local employers, national, not all in Columbus, several national employers, where we're doing professional development, credentialing, short-term certificates, and even degree programs inside the employer for their workforce. The employer helps to pay for that. It's easy for us because we don't have to go recruit a class, right? I mean, they're being delivered to us, and they get to invest in their people in a way that has boosted retention and productivity at those companies. And so we think it's time for partnership. The traditional ivory tower of we walk around in our strange robes and talk about philosophy and Plato and ignore the world around us, that has to stop, and it has at most institutions, and we have to reach out and build the bridge more intentionally between the employers that are going to take our graduates or currently have students that need served and what we're delivering in our programs.
So we're doing something very similar. So, along with Ohio State, Central State University is a land-grant university. And so part of our responsibilities as a land grant is to improve the lives of the citizens that we interact with. And nowadays, we do it through workforce development. And so one of our land grant mission is how do we increase people's ability to improve their income while we interact with them. And so we were also fortunate to have received a grant from Intel around semiconductor. So we have certificates and credentials in semiconductor, and then we are also developing certificate and credentials in healthcare. And what that does is for our traditional students, what we're planning for them to do is while they're taking their courses, they can get credentials as part of their 4-year degree, which then means they can work during the summer and earn money. And also we're trying to provide opportunities for adults that don't want to come to our campus. We have a dating campus, and that's what we're trying to establish as our workforce training development center so that, as he said, not even our 18-year-olds can get those credentials, and for non-traditional students, they can just get those credentials. And we're also working with Coursera to do online courses where people can get certificates in specific fields.
For Columbus State, in a lot of ways, the current environment is right in our wheelhouse. All of our students work, for the most part, even our younger students. So John's point is spot on in terms of partnerships with employers, really making this sustainable. Employers are being creative in different kinds of ways. It's not transactional where a student goes to school and then an employer hires them. It's really much more integrated. And we're working closely with employers every day so they can modify their HR plans to really map into earn and learn opportunities for our students. So while they're still in school, they're working and making money. And in many cases, employers are either have a generous tuition reimbursement program or more, there's a growing trend for tuition pre-reimbursement, where employers are paying it up front so the students don't have to carry those costs. So there is a path for a debt-free degree while students are making money with an employer. Those partnerships are foundational.
I really love this conversation because I think it hits us this idea that for higher education, we have to be available for the learner regardless of where they are in their journey, right? So that might mean you're the 17 or 18-year-old who's looking to go to college right out of high school, but it also may mean that you're the mid-career adult who's looking for a curriculum that's flexible, that allows you to work, but also allows you to get that degree. Those things are really critical, particularly when you think about that there's over 36 million individuals in the United States who has some college credit but no degree. In the state of Ohio, there's over 1 million individuals who has some college credit and no degree. So I love the way that we're thinking about how do we serve that important population for our workforce.
Dave, I really appreciated when you said folks are having to get creative. That is certainly something that we have heard a lot in our newsroom as we've been talking to folks on a lot of the beats that we cover. So I want to talk a little bit more about getting creative, both from an institution level, but then also with the students that you're interacting with. So when it comes to the students, let's say we have more adult learners showing up on campuses or showing up online. They are bringing a very different life experience to your campus than a 17, 18-year-old has who's been living at home and they're going out for the first time. And as we're continuing to, find more students in different demographic areas with different lifestyles and different backgrounds, some of that comes with food insecurity, housing insecurity, having to juggle taking care of children or other loved ones. So Dave, if you want to start, because we've done some reporting together on this, talk to me a little bit about how are we getting creative as institutions to serve these new groups of students showing up on campus?
We've been on a disciplined student success journey for a decade and a half now. Before the pandemic, as we started to realize we were losing students who were in good academic standing, we started talking to them and doing surveys and having focus groups and really trying to understand what was happening in their lives. And food, housing, transportation, and childcare came to the top. So we got on a mission to work on each of those, starting with a partnership with the Mid-Ohio Food Collective, where we've got a free grocery store, not just a market, a free grocery store on campus for our students and the entire community. Last year, we opened a child development center on campus. Many of our students are parents, working parents, so the ability to have their child with them on campus is a big step forward. We've got a partnership with Columbus Metropolitan Housing Authority that really tested removing housing insecurity and what that would do to advance student success. We've got a lot of data in that regard now. And CODA, through Link Us, frankly, we expect to be an even greater partner, not just getting students to campus, but helping students navigate their complicated lives. You think about a working mother who has to get to class, get to work, get to childcare, and then get home and maybe do all of that on public transportation. We're trying to centralize it all so that we're simplifying her life, making it less complicated, and making help unavoidable. We talk about that all the time, and I think we're on a good path there.
Yeah, we at Otterbein have had a food pantry on campus for a decade now. Just got a Title III grant from the federal government to work with first-generation low-income students if the federal government pays their bills. We'll see how that works out. Just got that, and then we hired all the staff, and we'll see if we get the money. We've made a lot of those same moves that most campuses have. I would zoom out just a little bit from the question and identify that there is an impediment in American higher education to most four-year institutions wanting to serve those students. And it's called rankings and prestige. We measure institutions' quality by how selective they are at the outset, by how much they close the door in American students' faces. And the more doors they slam on faces, the better a school it must be. That's messed up. That's wrong. And we need to break that mentality and reward institutions and think of institutions of having quality for who they reach out and serve and make our society better, not serving those who already have.
Okay.
Now we're going.
So I 100% agree with those words, especially for an institution that has, we provide access to underrepresented individuals, that we believe that it's very easy to take a high school student with a 3.0 GPA and your retention to the second year should be 95%, right? Because they're well prepared. Some of us don't have that fortune. Having said that, because we're using public funds, we understand our responsibility to produce outcomes. And so when we're talking about providing access to education, we have a Dayton location. That's downtown Dayton. It's in the middle of downtown. For those of you familiar with Dayton, downtown Dayton is very close to the lower income parts of the city. So we have this facility that we're trying to enhance. and rehabilitate because it's on the bus line. It's easy to get to. If you have children and you walk downtown Dayton, you can just go to a downtown Dayton location. Because our campus is in Wilberforce, which is remote. That in itself is a challenge for students who live on campus because they cannot go to town and get work. So we have to provide education where people are. So that's where we're trying to access that. But a topic you haven't brought up yet that is near and dear to us is the disparities in health, right? And we all know that that has to do with education. So later on, I want to talk about that if that's part of the questions, but I'll just leave it at that for now.
Anything to add? Awesome. So as I've talked with some of you before, I know this is a very passionate subject for you. A college degree remains a life-changing asset for graduates. Axios reported last year that graduates in 2023, so folks ages 22 to 27, earned about $24,000 more annually than their peers with only a high school degree. And yet, I have been at some events around town in the last couple of years with business leaders and individuals who say, you know, high school graduates, go into the workforce, go get a job, start getting paid right away. You know, we can figure out the college thing later. How do you respond to that argument for folks who say high school graduates should head right into the workforce and figure out the college question later? Yeah, President Kuti definitely wants to.
Yeah, so what I always tell people is when people tell you that, ask them what do they tell their kids? Because most of them are advocating for their kids to go to Ivy League schools or go to regional universities, but that's the advice they have for others, right? And they also have Ivy League degrees. But anyway, back to the point. What I'm trying to say is that it's a proven fact, regardless of where you're from, race, gender, sex, any kind of demographic, the number one predictor of your socioeconomic status is your college degree. And it's not just because I'm a university president, that's just what the facts are. And the key is, as the president said, is to open up the door so that more people can get that access. That's what we need to focus on, not to say the four-year degree is not important or the associate degree is not important. Is how do we make sure more people get that degree and all of us, because I believe that a better informed society is a much better society for all of us.
Yeah. And I also think in higher ed, we have to do some self-reflection too, because if we're honest with ourselves, the way that we've talked about the value of college has been something that's really been similar to an echo chamber, right? It resonates with us, but does it really resonate with the public? And so I think it's important to have those conversations in terms of, we know that over the next few years, there'll be around 1.5 million new jobs that will be available. Most of those jobs, though, will require people to have some post-high school credential or education. And then the other piece is talking about the ways in which our coursework and our curriculum is designed to meet workforce demand. Because many students, they would love the opportunity to go to college if they could see how it would connect with their careers. So how does the experience that I'm getting connect with my career? And then the last piece that I think is so important is this idea around affordability, right? So is it affordable? How much will it cost me, and how much will I earn when I graduate? And I think us thinking more about that and having that conversation with students and families really resonates with them.
So this comes up every time I meet with a state or federal lawmaker. Do we need more trades? This is a false choice. It is not trades or degrees. We need to build a better higher education system in which we connect these programs together. If someone goes and gets a credential as a plumber, they might run their own business someday. They might want a business class. They might want an accounting class. They might want a degree, a bachelor's degree eventually as their business grows. We need to make these credentials connected and stackable so that we're not creating these dead-end pathways, as if it's, well, you went then, now you're done. You can't go anywhere with that now. You're stuck in that forever. This is a false choice. The idea that it's four-year degrees or associate degrees or trades. And you can do both, and we can build a better system to serve people to do that.
So I should have gone before John because he gave my speech. Literally, I was going to say it's a false choice, so I will agree with him that it's a false choice. As I said, all of our students work anyway, and the ability for them to work while going to school, ideally with the employer as a partner, can really make a huge difference. Students can get jobs out of high school. They can't launch careers without a post-secondary credential, like James said. And the ability to help folks understand that this is a long game. And the ability to really get into the workplace, understand the nuances, understand the possibilities, and understand the role that education plays into that, the practicality of that, can really be, can change the trajectory of people's lives. And as I said before, the ability to do that with employer tuition assistance, not only are they getting a degree and growing in their career, they're graduating debt-free. So it's absolutely a false choice, and it's something that hopefully rooms like this can help us change the narrative, because we see it all the time, where students start at a university because that's what their ecosystem demanded of them, and a semester or a year in, they're coming to Columbus State with GPA issues and student debt issues and starting from scratch. That step is avoidable with the ecosystem we have in place in Central Ohio.
So let's talk a little bit about this self-reflection, as James called it, and changing the narrative, because I think just from this, conversation up here today, there are a lot of different ways that schools are innovating, whether it is food pantries on campus, whether it's partnerships with other institutions, regional campuses, the list goes on. What is next? What is the next way that higher education in Central Ohio can innovate to continue to meet these needs?
Well, I'll jump in. At Columbus State, we do nothing without a partner. And I think that partnership ethos really gives us a foundation to respond to what's next. We've got great partnerships with our university partners called Preferred Pathway with Ohio State, Otterbein. Mr. President, we're going to get together and talk about, we've already talked about that, where our graduates are guaranteed admission to the university to create a pathway to a debt-free bachelor's degree. A full-time student at Columbus State pays $5,000 a year. Most of our students aren't full-time. Many of them are Pell eligible, so most don't pay that. So the ability to be a university junior with zero student debt is a huge step forward. We had launched a new partnership with Ohio Wesleyan University last year, a program called Tuition Match, where they are matching our tuition for the junior and senior year. So our graduates who go to Ohio Wesleyan are paying $5,000 a year for their junior and senior year, a $20,000 bachelor's degree at Ohio Wesleyan University. Those kinds of creative partnerships really come from shared vision and shared conversations like this. We've got similar arrangements with employers who, again, are really being creative and thoughtful in terms of how to create non-traditional pathways into their careers. And one of the partnerships that you'll hear more about next week is Columbus Promise. It's something that came through during the pandemic, working with the City of Columbus, specifically Council President Hardin and Mayor Ginther, with Columbus City Schools and a college access organization called I Know I Can, which provides a tuition-free opportunity for all Columbus City Schools graduates to Columbus State. None of that happens without shoulder-to-shoulder partners with a shared vision and a commitment to working through the details, because these things aren't easy, but they can really be game-changing for students, families, and our entire community.
Well, I love what you're mentioning, because it really gets at this idea of industry partnerships being critically important, but also focusing the way we think about education being towards providing workforce opportunities for our students. A great example is that at Ohio State, on our regional campuses, we have a Bachelor's of Science in Engineering Technology. And what we know is that that program is absolutely critical to providing access, is meeting a workforce need. The other piece that I say is really important for the future is thinking about online learning and online education. So how do we use online to provide an access to an education for those working adults? And since I've mentioned so many stats, I'll mention another one. In Ohio, over 500,000 Ohioans are taking online courses, but they're taking it out of the state of Ohio, right? And I think we have a great opportunity to use online education to educate Ohioans.
So I think that, as a public institution, the first thing that, because we're using public funds, I remind my colleagues every day on campus that these funds that we have can be used for other very meaningful things than higher education. It could be K through 12, it could be medical needs, it could be law enforcement, that these are all very important needs, right? So we have to convince the public and policymakers the value that they're getting for the money that we're giving, that we are receiving. So that's a tremendous responsibility on our behalf, that we have to make sure we're using those public funds wisely. And so we have some on-campus initiatives to help our students get to the third year, which we call the Guided Pathway Initiative, meaning you take a set of classes, because most 18-year-olds don't know exactly what they want to do, so they take a lot of classes. But we're trying to provide a pathway for them to take these classes, and after their third year, they are more able to make a choice. We're also engaged in online learning we want to do it in a more systematic manner, as I mentioned, where you get credentials so that you can work while you're still in education. But we just need to be able to demonstrate to the public that it's not an ivory tower. Sometimes that's the innovation, is for people to actually get to know what we're doing. And we also have a responsibility to go to, I'm the newest president here. I've not even been a president for 1 year, so maybe I don't know what I'm talking about. but anyway, that we need to come to forums like this, go to Columbus, go to places where people are, and just tell them, invite them on our campus so they can see what we're doing. Because as the president said, we just need to engage more people in what we're doing. I think sometimes that's the innovation, at least for us, is for people to understand what we are and what we do and how education improves everybody's lives.
I agree with all of my colleagues, all well stated. I will say the controversial thing, change is coming to higher education, and it probably is not going to be led by higher education. This is going to be forced from the outside, because what we're doing right now doesn't work. As a system, we can each have examples of our institutions, what we're doing and so forth and so on, but as a system, this isn't working. And so it's accountability season in American higher education, and you're going to see state funding for scholarships and for SSI, for the state share of instruction for public institutions, continue to get squeezed from the state government. You're going to see squeezing of resources from the federal government, as we're already seeing in the early days of the Trump administration. You're going to see accountability to outcomes of our graduates, and you're going to see consolidation in the marketplace. There will be fewer colleges in Ohio in 2 years, and in 5 years, and in 10 years than there are today. And frankly, we're overbuilt. There's too many schools with too many seats. And that's okay that we're going to see some consolidation and partnership and new ways of doing business. We have to make sure what we're doing is relevant. We have to be unabashed about breaking the elitist model of only serving 30 ACT kids from wealthy families, and be democratic about the way we allocate this life-changing resource and this life-changing program that we deliver. And I think if we don't do it ourselves, it's going to come from the outside.
Thank you all so much. This has been a great conversation, and we're going to keep it going here. It's CMC's longstanding tradition to do audience questions. So we're going to move to questions from our live stream and in-person audiences in just a few minutes. Doug there in the back. Hi, Doug. If you have a question here in the audience, go ahead, make your way back that way. Doug will help you out back there. We're going to do one more question while folks are getting situated here. Lots of folks in this room are innovative, they are community leaders, you are all extremely impressive, and many of you are also parents, so you have a financial stake in some of what these guys are doing up here. And you might have questions about what's the best route for my kid, and where do we go from here? So I would love to hear from everyone up here, what advice do you have for parents or high school seniors who are considering whether college is right for them? What words do you have for them?
I'm going to go first because I have a high school senior, and we've been doing college visits, and I've been driving the Otterbein staff crazy with, I went on this visit, and they did this thing, and that was cool. We should do that too. And so I'm driving everyone nuts right now with me and my high school senior. And I can confirm the research is correct. There is no rhyme or reason at all to the college selection process. We had a sunny day and a nice tour guide, and he loved it. And that's sort of all there is to it. We need to be better than that. Because what that means, because there's no rhyme or reason to the college choice process, it means that students land at schools that are the wrong match for them. The strength of American higher education is our diversity. You want a big flagship school, go to Ohio State. You want a small liberal arts college, come to Otterbein. You want to start a community college, go to Columbus State. There's diversity in the system. It's not one size fits all. We need to stop acting that way and help students understand what makes each school distinct. What is going to make this program distinct? And so that means we have to stop giving the same tour on every campus. Look at our old castle building. Don't we have a nice old castle building? Everyone has an old castle building. Who cares? What is distinct about this program? And stop trying to be all things to all people and all programs to all students, and be institutions that look for match that will lead to retention and graduation rates.
So I had moved the mic to my mouth to follow you, but you got a round of ovation. So I don't know if I want to do that. No, seriously, I love that. One of the things that I think is so important is introducing students to college as early as possible. So I think of our participation in the STARS Network, which is a consortium of universities across the country that's really designed to expose students from small towns and rural communities to college. So we try to bus students to the institution early on. When they're thinking about college, we try to expose them to our regional campuses to really identify not just what's the best institution for you, but what's the best fit. So when you're at the institution and you look at the students who are at the institution and you talk to the faculty, you talk to the staff, where can you really see yourself fitting? And then how does that connect to your future career goals?
So what we're trying to tell students is there's only one public HBCU in Ohio that's a land grant, that the experience that we provide you cannot get anywhere else. Although we don't care your reason for coming, as long as you come. But I'm saying that to say, as the president said, students make choices that are unexplainable, but we want them to understand what they're getting when they come here. Because if you don't know that and you come here for a wrong reason, like he said, you're not likely to stay. So we want to, we're developing a new mission statement, and one of the words is there is that we provide a personalized learning pathway, regardless of whether you're an adult, you're 18-year-old. We want to make sure that you're here, and this is the path that you want to take. And once you understand what we offer, and that's why you come, you're more likely to stay. So that's what we're selling. We don't want students just to show up for any reason. We want them to know why they're here and what we offer.
As I said before, I think we need to help students and families understand that this is a long game. It's not their experience as an 18-year-old, but their experience as a 28-year-old, a 38-year-old, a 48-year-old, and how these decisions can launch them or hinder them towards that path. And the ability, again, collectively, for us to help students really understand, and families, it's really important, to understand the options that are available and talk to people that have been through various journeys and compare their experiences to what the student wants to experience. Don't hide the fact at all that I have a problem with student debt because I think it's avoidable. And the ability for students and families to understand the ROI involved in their education, I think, is really important, both in terms of how much it costs, but also what the payback will be down the road from a career standpoint.
John, I'll be honest, I feel a little called out because when I went to visit Ohio State as a 17-year-old, they played Carmen, Ohio, had a tear in my eye. I went to Ohio State, what can I say? I'm part of the problem. Thank you all so much. Doug Buchanan with CMC is going to be curating questions from our live stream audience, and folks in the back are going to get a chance to ask a question as well. So take it away, Doug.
Sheridan, thank you so much. Thank you to today's panelists. Great CMC conversation. Thank you. If you have a question for today's panelists, please do join me at the mic. We've got a long line here, but we'll try to get to as many as we can. If you're watching online on YouTube, please type your question in the chat, and I'll try to get it read at the microphone here. Great questions at CMC always have two things in common. They take 30 seconds or less to ask. And what punctuation mark does a question end with? It ends with a question mark. Yes, it does. Thank you. Okay. Let's start with this one. Richard Meyer asks, for any panelist, how will the recent proposed state legislation impact higher ed institutions? And I assume he's talking about what is now called Senate Bill 1.
I guess I'll start. Senate Bill 1 is specific to public institutions, and so my colleagues from the publics might have other thoughts here. It certainly sets a precedent of political interference in higher education that I think is, even though it wouldn't apply to an Otterbein, is a dangerous place to go. I think it is critical that our college campuses, if we are going to be legitimate educators, are welcoming to all mainstream points of view. We don't pick sides. And when we let the left or the right start interfering in our curriculum and how we deliver it, then I think that's problematic to what we can deliver as educators. We want well-rounded students that are exposed to all mainstream ideas, and I hope that that trend doesn't last long of reaching into our institutions to meddle.
I mean, where Central State University is a member of what is called the Inter-University Council of Public Universities, and the council's position is to be neutral towards Senate Bill 1.
Jane Scott, I applaud you for your creativity and hope it lasts, hope it continues. What is the path, and is there an opportunity for someone who's interested in a liberal arts education at a four-year university to major as a plumber or an electrician or an HVAC technician or a cabinet maker or a contractor? Dr. Harrison, I know you have great programs that do that, but that person comes out with an associate degree, a technical degree. I think the business plumbers, the business electricians, the business carpenters and cabinet makers will benefit from a liberal education. How do we get there?
I'll jump in. In a lot of ways, I say this from time to time, we're kind of a graduate school for some people who have a bachelor's degree and have decided a little bit later that they know what they want to do. And it may be a plumber or an HVAC technician. It may be a nurse. We started our first bachelor's degree program this year, Bachelor of Science in Nursing. We're actually going to have graduates this spring after only 1 year because they came to us with a bachelor's degree already. And are using that as a career transition. So I think that's a great question. And again, I think it speaks to the fact that higher education isn't a one-time event in people's lives. And that's going to be the case even more so going forward. So the ability for us to work together, and I'll tell you, Central Ohio is lucky to have the diversity of institutions and the level of collaboration that we have that makes that easy for folks to access.
Yeah, because I really believe it's this idea of educating students and families, and being available to them as educators across their journey, so across their lifelong journey, regardless of where they are in their career or where they are in their life. We try to think about that a lot at Ohio State. We offer completion grants, and these are grants where when students come back to us and maybe they need some funds to be able to continue their education or get a credential. Our regional campuses do an amazing job as well of being available for students, families, and just learners across the journey as they're thinking about differences in their career. And the last thing that I'll say is that what we know is that the arts, the humanities, liberal arts is super critical because employers are constantly asking the question, not only do you have this interdisciplinary depth, not only are you good with your trade, but can you communicate with people who are different from you? Are you good at managing your time? Are you a problem solver? Because what we know is that the world's largest challenges 10 years from now is not just about, do you know your field? It's, do you know how to think, and do you know how to answer really difficult questions?
Hi, my name is Sarah Julian Bell. I'm from Mount Carmel College of Nursing. My question, it's clear that the federal government is going to begin determining the value of specific degrees following the passage and implementation of the Financial Value Transparency and Gainful Employment Act. So I have a two-part question. How are your institutions preparing a response for potential repercussions or fallout from these targeted actions? And how do acts like FVTGE impact academic freedom and the value placed in the sharing of knowledge? Thank you.
So I can get started. That was a great question and perfectly phrased. We always try to help policymakers see the longer arc of a career. One of my favorite stats about Otterbein grads, and these are grads of all institutions, this applies. The students are flocking to the majors that sound like jobs, nursing and STEM and business. And there's a general, well, if I major in history, what do I do, right? Or major in political science, what do I do, or art? The reality is the professional programs immediately after graduation, those students make more. A nurse is going to make more than a history major the day after graduation. If you go 20 years into a career, it's reversed itself. Because oftentimes the students that come out of the social sciences and humanities have found themselves in career paths where they're getting promoted, they're starting businesses, they're doing things like that. Whereas nurses often stay nurses, as they should. That was the goal, right? And so there's a chance for advancement in some of these other fields. And so you got to take a longer view than like, they want to measure 6 months after graduation, what are they making? And that's just not the right way to think about this. The other thing I'll say is, given the pace of change of technology and AI and everything else, I can't imagine a job that's going to be the same in 5 years or 10 years, much less over the arc of a 40-year career. And so you want breadth. The more narrow the program, the more it's just training, the more someone's going to invent a robot pretty quickly to do your job, and you're going to be left on the outside looking in. 20 years ago, 30 years ago, there was the hot degree program in New Jersey. Every school had a program in a bachelor's in gaming management, casinos. What do you do with a bachelor's in gaming management in New Jersey today? My bet is not much. It's too narrow. You want the breadth, and we want to take the longer term view of the value of those programs.
Can I jump into that? Because that's a great point. And it reminds me of going back to Jane's question. Recently was in a meeting with a number of employers talking about cybersecurity and the skill set required there. And one of them said the best training would be someone with a bachelor's degree in humanities and your, pointing to me, your cybersecurity certificate, because they'll have the technical skills and the tools, but also the thought process that can anticipate some of these issues.
Thank you all. As a history major myself, I can say there is hope out there, yes. Dr. J asks, for traditional institutions, are there problems getting faculty buy-in for online learning or different ways of approaching credentialing?
One of the things that makes online learning very effective is the flexibility that it gives to students as they're learning. That does mean that we have to rethink the pedagogy when we're delivering online courses. We know that effective online delivery is typically asynchronous. What we also know is that as you're thinking about all the different workforce demands, challenges that we've talked about today, and if you're thinking about those 500,000 Ohioans who are taking online courses outside of the state of Ohio, that lets us know that we have to really think critically about how we deliver online education, and that we do it with a pedagogy that allows students to learn and engage. And many times that's very different from what happens in the on-ground coursework. You can't just take an on-ground course and lump it over into the online world and be effective at it.
Yeah, and I would just add briefly to that, one of my favorite jokes is if you ask 5 faculty members for their opinion on something, you'll get 10 opinions. And so it's a little all over the place, right? And so some are quick early adopters and want to be part of it, and some are like, oh, understanding the resistance is often because your prototypical faculty member was a rock star undergraduate student who got lots of attention as undergrad, went to grad school at some R1 like Ohio State and got lots of attention there. They were never an adult learner. They probably never took an online class, and they feel like a fish out of water when they're asked to do that. So it's about support around something that they might be just a little intimidated by.
Thank you. We have 4 minutes left. We'll try to get to 2 questions.
Hi, I'll try to be fast. I'm Len Huff with Axios. My colleagues report plenty on cost of living. You all have talked about different programs you have for adult learners. I'm curious what you think the interest higher ed institutions should take in maintaining affordable childcare, access to housing once those adult learners graduate, to make sure that the economic environment is friendly to those graduates.
All right, I'll start. It's an issue we care about deeply. I can tell you, even based on a meeting that I was in this morning, that employers are starting to lean in more and more on those issues, specifically around childcare. So the ability for us to eliminate as many barriers as we can while they're students elevates the opportunity for them to enter a workplace that's going to be supportive for those needs ongoing, whether it's because of they're making enough money to meet those needs or the employer themselves is providing that service. So I think, again, that partnership will be important as those non-academic barriers continue into the workplace.
I'll just add ever so briefly, we tried at Otterbein. We had a 100-acre development right next to campus plan for multi-use, affordable workforce housing, new park, Coda Transit hub, a really dynamic community next to campus. And the forces that be in local government got in the way of that. And so the forces that get in the way of creating sustainable, healthy, affordable living environments is we got to look in the mirror sometimes, because our elected representatives aren't always delivering on that.
My name is Emmanuel Merdas. I'm the Director of Youth Services for ETSS. I'm also a proud Columbus State graduate, yeah. About 27 years ago, when I moved to United States, I have a 4-year degree education background, but I was not sure how to get involved and enroll into school, and Columbus State gave me that opportunity. I'm very thankful about that. My question is related to that. There are many immigrants and refugees who are coming with a lot of education background as well as work experiences. And when they got here, they cannot directly fit into the system. They have to find a way to improve themselves where they're looking toward the college and the higher educations. And my question for you is, what is your strategy to engage this demographic? And also, not only for them, for their children. Most of them, they moved here to give a better opportunity, especially education for their children. And so how do you involve these parents who doesn't have that experience similar to others who have the privilege to navigate the system, enroll their children into college?
Yeah, I really appreciate that question. I think that's critical when we're thinking about access. I mentioned earlier about our STARS Network program and where we're going into rural communities and Appalachian areas and helping students and families, because families is a critical part of this, is navigate the college process. So how do you think about selecting a college? How do you find financial aid so that you can fund school? What majors do you need to think about? Those type of things are critical. We also have something called the Buckeye Student Leadership Academy, and David Roy is sitting right here in front of me, and David runs that program. And what we do is in students in their junior year, we work with them and their families to take them through the college applying process so that they can get into college. But here's what's far more important is that we want them to be successful while they're here at the institution. And success doesn't just mean retention and completion, it also means career and job outcomes as well. So part of addressing the college going rates is going to be reaching into communities like you've described and really helping create more people who are eligible for college, know how to apply to college, and also are able to be successful while they're in college and afterwards.
Everyone, I wish that we could keep talking about higher ed. I could do it all day. Come find me after. But I'm getting the wrap-up signal from Doug, so I'm going to turn it back over to Tony for some concluding remarks.
Okay, everybody, I'm assuming for those of you who sort of know me, there's an energy that I hope you have. So here's my remarks. I hope that you found today's conversation leaving you connected to a shared vision, right? What I heard so much, especially from Dr. Harrison, not that I'm giving him deference as his favorite student of 2012, I'm just saying that, that partnership and connected vision. But I do hope that today's forum leaves you better informed, ready to connect the dots, right? And I want you to say ready. Everybody, 1, 2, 3, ready. 1, 2, 3, ready. Yes, ready to connect the dots, ready to engage, and deciding what's yours to do. So each of you, I hope that you're looking and thinking to yourselves, like, what's mine to do in this situation? And anything that you do, any thought that you have and enact is right. So yeah, ready to call Drs. Cootie, Comerford, Harrison, and James Orr today. Do it today to be part of this, because this can be game-changing for our communities and families. Thank you to our sponsors of today's forum, Columbus State Community College, Grange Insurance. I don't have songs for the others, but I'll think of a jingle for next time. The Ohio State University and Otterbein University. We are also grateful to the presenting sponsor of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness with the Columbus Foundation, and our live stream and promotional partner, Columbus Dispatch. Thank you so much. And a big thank you. I hope that I can embarrass this person or highlight her sitting somewhere there. I hope she's going to stand. Dr. Joyce Chan, would you stand up? Let's give her a big round of applause for suggesting today's forum topic. We love that. And a very special appreciation to today's speakers, coming straight to you from Central State University, Dr. Moraquino A.O. Cootie, the president of Otterbein University, Dr. John Comerford, the president of Columbus State, Dr. David Harrison, and the vice provost for strategic enrollment and management at The Ohio State University, James Orr. And of course, our host, whom we hope will come back and host again, Ms. Sheridan Hendricks. We don't know if she's related to Jimi Hendrix, but she rocks. So thank you. I hope you'll make plans to come and join us again next week. You'll have a different but amazing presider here at the Ellis. And the topic, drum roll, please. Thank you for the drum roll. Drum roll, the caregiver crisis. How do we solve it? Okay, see you next week. Thank you, everyone.